James sent me an email stating he had been diagnosed with diabetes type 1.5 and didn't know exactly what that meant. There are several types of diabetes and it would be easy to get confused about them. Clearing that up is important as the treatments for them are different. Diabetes type 2 is the most common type and is becoming more common worldwide, but especially in the US. This is a disease associated with obesity and insulin resistance. As more fat tissue accumulates, it makes insulin not work as well. The pancreas is still making insulin and has to make more of it to overcome the insulin resistance. Treatment of type 2 diabetes starts with lifestyle changes and oral medicines, and sometimes insulin is also needed. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease affecting the pancreas. The beta cells in the pancreas make insulin and they get destroyed by the immune system. Oral medicines will not work for diabetes type 1, and the only treatment is insulin injections. This requires frequent blood glucose checks, and without insulin, someone with type 1 diabetes cannot survive. Type 1 diabetes often is diagnosed in younger people and presents with a relatively sudden onset and often requires hospitalization for something called diabetic ketoacidosis. It used to be called juvenile onset diabetes. Type 1.5 diabetes shares features of both type 1 and type 2 diabetes and is also called Latent Autoimmune Diabetes in adults, or LADA. Type 1.5 diabetes can be triggered by damage to the beta cells in the pancreas when the immune system makes antibodies against the beta cells. When the pancreas gets damaged in type 1.5 diabetes, the body destroys the insulin-producing beta cells, much like in type 1 diabetes, but much more slowly. Type 1.5 diabetes is diagnosed during adulthood and sets in gradually and is often mistaken for type 2 diabetes. Most people get type 1.5 diabetes in their 40s and sometimes as late as into their 70s and 80s. People with type 1.5 diabetes differ from those with type 2 diabetes in several ways. They're not obese, are over age 30 at the time of diagnosis, and have a difficult time managing their blood sugars with oral medications, lifestyle changes, and watching their diet. Tests to diagnose any of the forms of diabetes include a fasting plasma glucose test done after fasting for 8 hours. An oral glucose tolerance test is a blood draw done after an 8-hour fast, then drinking a glucose-containing drink and measuring the blood glucose 2 hours after that. A random glucose test is a blood glucose test done any time without taking into account when you last ate. A C-peptide level measures insulin production. Specific antibodies can also be tested for if the correct diagnosis is in question. Although oral medications such as metformin can work for a while in type 1.5 diabetes, the preferred treatment is insulin injections, as insulin can help preserve beta cell function. There is no way to prevent type 1.5 diabetes at this time. Your healthcare provider can help you navigate this complicated path. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Vainio, and this is Health Matters.